Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here, and today we are tackling toffee. Now, toffee and caramels are problematic for the home cook, and maybe that's because you don't know the tricks and the tips along the way for success. So today I'm going to share with you some of those really important details, and it's actually really easy to make. I have a very deep saucepan here and one of these things. This is a very important piece of cooking equipment that you will need if you are going to make a lot of confections or candies at home. It is a deep fat frying thermometer or a candy thermometer, and it has the temperatures that go up the side, and it actually notes for you the specific stages at which candy or sugars reach a certain temperature and what that will yield in the cooled syrup. So we're gonna get started with the sugars here. I'm using granulated sugar as the primary sugar, and this is 2 2/3 cup of regular granulated sugar. That goes right into my pot here. I'm going to add 1/3 cup of regular water, and the water is going to help in dissolving the sugar and helping it to melt and caramelize evenly. So it is an important ingredient that you should add to this mix here. In addition to the sugar, I'm also adding a little bit of corn syrup. Now, corn syrup is going to help with two things. It's going to help in terms of stabilizing the toffee or the caramel mixture so that we kind of avoid separation or crystallization. And it's also going to help in softening the toffee so that it's not too hard and too crunchy where it might crack your tooth. Now, to this, I'm going to add butter. This is 1 pound or 4 sticks of unsalted butter. And this is the main difference in caramel versus toffee. So toffees have some sort of dairy component that's added in the beginning stages, so before it is boiled and cooked, as opposed to a caramel, which just is a sugar mixture, a sugar syrup that is then boiled and caramelized. So I'm gonna add all this butter in right from the start, and I'm going to turn the heat on to a low temperature. So start your toffee out at a low temperature, because what that does is it helps all of the ingredients kind of melt at a similar rate, and this will prevent separation. So you don't really have to worry that much about crystallization here like you would with a caramel, but one thing that people have problems with when it comes to toffee is separation, is the butter separating from the caramel. So doing this first step at a lower temperature will help in preventing that. So just stir it together with, I have a silicone or rubber spatula here. You could use a wooden spoon. Mix it together, melt this down on low before we begin the boiling process, where we want this mixture then to reach a certain temperature. And that temperature is 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And 300 degrees Fahrenheit is considered the hard crack stage. And hard crack means just that, you guys, in that when the mixture is completely cooled, it will crack. So it's been about a few minutes here over medium heat, and I've been stirring every so often, helping to encourage the butter to melt evenly into the sugar. Now, I can feel through the rubber scraper that there isn't a grittiness or any granules of sugar left over, so the sugar is dissolved, the butter's melted. Now I'm going to crank this up to a medium-high heat here, and really we want this mixture now to cook undisturbed. It's gonna boil up, and that's kind of why we have a tall pot here that we're using. And really what we're looking for is the temperature to reach 300 degrees. And that will take anywhere between 10 to 12 minutes, depending on your heat source. It might even take a little bit longer. So make sure you invest in one of these really great thermometers and keep an eye on the mixture. But the one thing you really want to avoid here is stirring at this point, because we don't want to encourage this mixture to separate. So we're up to 300 degrees. We're actually a tiny bit over, so now is the time to pour this out into a lightly oiled cookie sheet. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a whisk here, guys, just to mix it together, and then pour it right out. If there are any bits of toffee that are browned on the bottom, don't scrape those out, you guys. Leave them in the pot. And for easy cleanup here, just put some water into your pot and then put it back onto the stove, and you can kind of boil out that really hot sugar. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to just leave this toffee, I like to shake out the tray a little bit, and it is hot, you guys, so be careful and use mitts here, or I'm using my apron, but just kind of wiggle the tray a little bit so that the toffee settles into the corners. So you want to wait about 30 seconds before you sprinkle it with a little bit of sea salt. If you do it while it's really super hot, what's going to happen is the salt's going to sink right in. Now, at this point in time, if you really wanted to add nuts to your toffee, so a lot of English toffees have either finely ground almonds like this or finely ground pecans. You could use whatever nut you love. If you love cashews, that could either be sprinkled on now as well, or you could mix it in right at the end when I was whisking the toffee and pour that out. And that would give you a really nice English style toffee. But today I'm just gonna sprinkle this with a little bit of the sea salt here. And you guys might be saying, okay, so toffee, what can I use this for? What can I do with it? Well, toffee is one of those really great confections that can be used in so many different ways. It can be served just like this, gifted just like this. It could be coated in chocolate, which I'm gonna show you how to do that in kind of larger pieces to create a really great bark or brittle. And it could also be cut up into really tiny little bite-sized pieces, little bits that can be folded into so many different baked goods. But right now, this is gonna have to cool till it's room temperature, and then I'm gonna show you how to break it into pieces, and I'm gonna actually coat it in some chocolate for a really nice bark. All right, so the toffee has cooled completely. I have a little bit of melted chocolate here and those ground almonds from before. And really all you need to do here, guys, is break this into pieces that you would like to eat, depending on what you're making. So I'm going to just crack off a few bigger pieces because I want to make a bark. So these are what, like 3-inch pieces here. And now you could do one of two things. You can dip in some chocolate. This is just melted semi-sweet chocolate. You can dip in halfway, kind of shaking off some of the excess of the chocolate. Put it on a parchment lined sheet tray here, and you can sprinkle with almonds, and you have a nice, really elegant looking piece of bark. You can certainly, if you'd like, you can submerge the toffee into the chocolate. And this is actually a chocolate fork is what it's called. So it's kind of a thin pieces of metal here that really work well for fishing out pieces of the chocolate covered toffee. And it's so thin, the tines are so thin that all you really need to do is kind of tap this on the side of the bowl so that the excess chocolate falls off of the toffee here, and you have a perfectly enrobed piece of toffee. Put it on that parchment lined sheet tray, and you can sprinkle this with nuts as well. Now all these little pieces of toffee you can break with a rolling pin, or you can chop it up with a knife and put it into a resealable container and use it in those cookies or those brownies like I talked about before. Or you guys, if you didn't want to go through all this fuss of chocolate coating and all this stuff, you can just eat it because toffee is so delicious. Now, we've answered one of your kitchen conundrums here. If you have any others, reach out to us using the hashtag Kitchen Conundrums. We'd love to hear what you're having problems with so that we can help you solve them. There you go, guys. Enjoy. And as always, guys, click like and subscribe.